Hello, everybody. Claire, thank you so much. And I would like to thank our previous facilitators and every one of you for joining in. I'm very thrilled to be sharing with us this afternoon. My name is Fausta Akelo Oringa. I'm a civil servant, I'm a mother, and a happy wife. So to kick it off, we are going to be sharing, I'll be sharing with us what to know before you say I do. Now, just from the questions alone, a lot of you guys have already preempted my presentation, and I'm very excited, and I believe that we're all going to learn and we shall be impacted. So I know we prayed already earlier on, but I would like us just to say a little prayer just for this session. Our loving Father, we thank you for this day. Just want to invite you, Holy Spirit, to come and take over. May you take control of this session. May you, Lord, answer our questions before even we ask them, because you know us like that. And Holy Spirit, may you take control. Jesus, may you receive all the glory and honor. In Jesus' name we prayed. Amen. So what to know before you say I do? Before we even go into all of that, what to know? What does I do mean to you? What is I do to you? So before you get into the I do, the marriage stage and all, it's very important to understand what are you getting into. And marriage is the only, I would say, the only institution, or the it's the only exam. Let's say if you equate it to an exam, it's the only exam which already has all the answers known. Like the answers are already there, because there are people who have been married. There's a lot written about marriage that people have experienced it. So you cannot just afford to go into it blind. So you need this, you have to share experiences with the other people. So what is marriage to you? You need to understand the foundation of it before you get into it. And because the vows you say on the wedding day are pretty strong, they are deep. You vow. I'm just going to turn off the video so that my quality of sound is better. Yeah. So there are key facts. We want to go to the foundation of marriage. What is marriage? Marriage, in the beginning, marriage was ordained by God, like Dr. Monica already mentioned earlier on. Marriage in itself was ordained by God, and it was designed to last one's lifetime. So it's until death do us part. So it's very important to understand the genesis of it. God designed it that way, that a man and woman shall leave their parents, and the two shall become one. And in Matthew 19:6, it says, so they are no longer one but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Now, if we understand the foundation that marriage in itself is designed to last, it was designed, first of all, by God, and it was designed to last. That helps us to form a good background for us before we decide to say I do eventually. And the second key important thing aspect is that marriage in itself is a calling. So you don't just get married for your own pleasure. You don't get married just because you feel like it, or because everybody is getting married, right? Marriage is a calling, because it's a vocation that God designed. So you have to be sure, you have to be very sure that this is your vocation. You have to have a moment of discernment. You have to pray about this thing. You ask the Lord, God Himself, because He's the author of marriage. So you have to go back to Him and ask Him, am I really called for marriage? Is marriage my calling? Or maybe you've called me for something else, because there are different vocations out there. Like we just had one of us is asking whether he doesn't feel called to be a priest, which is a good question to ask yourself. So you go through that stage of a period of discernment. What is marriage? Am I called for marriage? First Corinthians 7:16 tells us, I wish that, where St. Paul was telling us that I wish that all of you were as I am, but each of you has your own gift from God. One has this gift, and another has that. So not everyone is called, first of all, to marriage. Not everyone is called to the other different vocations. Each one of us has their own calling, and each one of us has their own vocation that God has prepared for us. So the very first thing before you say I do is understand what is marriage. Are you called to marriage in the first place, or you're just there tying on marriage? So you need to be very sure. And you can, if you have a spiritual director, we can't, fortunately we cannot talk about marriage without talking about God. So I'm going to be making a lot of reference to God, a lot of reference to the Bible, because that's where it begins from. I cannot talk about it any other way. So one professor quoted that marriage is not an institution and way of life that is intended primarily for one's pleasure, comfort, happiness, and fulfillment. Marriage is intended for the glory of God. Believing men and women are privileged and commanded to serve God in married life. So yes, so if marriage, as you've seen, marriage, as we are going to discuss further on, you're going to realize that marriage in itself, what happens in marriage necessarily may not be comfortable for you, or may not bring you happiness or fulfillment, but you have to do it anyway because you're serving God. It's a calling, so you're serving the other person through marriage. You're serving others through your marriage, and in the end, you're serving God. So now that we understand the foundation of marriage, where it comes from and why, and you have established that you're indeed called to get married, yes, you want to know, now I'm going to talk about the things. It's a very broad topic. There's so much we can talk about, but these are the few things that I believe we need to know, you should know, we're going to focus on right now for you to know before you say I do. Now, the very first thing is, which has already been asked about in the previous question and answer session, is that feelings cannot sustain marriage. Feelings cannot sustain a marriage. Love is not feelings. Love is a decision. And when you're getting married, even while you're married, those who are married already will agree with me that love, like feelings, are not always there when you're married, right? Today you may feel so high, so in love. Oh my God, my boyfriend or my husband, but the next day, rather, you don't feel anything. I mean, you're just blank. So love is a decision. You have to decide to love somebody for who they really are. You look beyond the beauty, you look beyond the suit, you look beyond the slaying, you look beyond the selfies, the beautiful social media things they share. You look beyond that and you go to the person. Who is this person you're marrying? So it's very important to understand that feelings cannot sustain your marriage. So you have to go down to the basics, to the values. What is it? Decide and love. When you love somebody and you make a decision to love it, to love that person, then you have to stick there. And that is what sustains marriages. So that way, even when you're faced with different situations, you will remain, you will not get bored or get tired because you decided to love somebody. And then you leave it out. And then the other thing that we need to know is marriage, just like relationships, if you're just dating, goes through stages. And I think this will answer the question where someone was asking that do relation people go through ups and downs? Yeah. So the first stage, normally, different schools of thought have different names for these stages, right? The very first one is the romance stage, which can be called the honeymoon or the dream stage. And this one usually lasts from when you're dating up to like the first 2 years of your marriage. Now, in this stage, oh my God, everything is perfect. You look at your partner, they're the best, they're the most handsome or the most beautiful person. When they smile, even when they say something silly, it's beautiful. You can't start living without them. Things are beautiful. For those who are married, the sex is so great. They have it all the time. All those things. That is the romance stage. You're so in sync. Everything connects. Yeah. And then after the 2 years have gone and all, you get used to each other, you go to the drama stage. And this one can go on from like 2 to 12 years. So if you've already been dating for like 3 years and you feel like things are stale, no, they're not stale, you've just entered a different stage of your relationship. So even in marriage, it happens. So you go to the drama stage, and this one is characterized by a realization, like you get a more real vision of the rest of your life together. And this and now here you start to focus, you start to notice the flaws, the things that used to be exciting. Maybe he coughs a certain way, now it starts to be annoying. You start noticing the differences and all. And this stage, this drama stage, calls for a lot of acceptance. This is where now you need to understand that you made a decision to love this person and you have to accept them with all their flaws. There's that song by John Legend that I love you with all your curves and edges. Yeah. This is where you have to love somebody with all their curves and edges. You have to accept that this is the person you married. and this is who they are. They have their flaws, and guess what? There's no one who is perfect. So you have to accept your person, and it calls for acceptance, calls for respect and openness to change, and also a lot of communication, like we shared already in the first. Honest, open, honest communication, yeah? And this will get you through this stage. Then the other stage is the discovery stage, and this can go on from 12 to 25 years. And here now, you have children have arrived, maybe careers have grown, your personal commitments have deepened, and marriage almost has become like a business, right? You have to take care of children, you have to pay school fees, you have to do that, you have to run the business. Everything becomes, almost like a business. And this is also very normal. It happens because you're focusing on bigger things, on children, rather than just your feelings. But you have to understand this and make deliberate effort and be very intentional so that your marriage doesn't break because you're getting so eaten up by other aspects of life. At the end of it all, your relationship is very important. But when you're aware of the stage you're in, then only then can you make the deliberate effort to make it better, to make it more beautiful. So in the discovery stage also, that's when there's an explosion of, let's say, health issues. You have lots of challenges. Maybe you're trying to build your home, or your partner finds out they have a life-threatening condition, or your parents are ill. There's a lot going on, but you have to deal the best you can with life's challenges and changes. But at the same time, you make sure you're happy, right, and healthy. Try to enjoy it. Then the final stage in a relationship or marriage, because these things cut across, the depth stage, and this is like from 25 years old for our parents now, those who've been married for at least 25 years. It's like you've completed, children have grown, you've settled the people of your home, you have made your investments, and your marital happiness really can soar because you've been with each other for a very long time. You have understood and accepted each other. It's a lot more easier, that said, because all these pressures have now vanished. So it's very important to understand these stages so that when you're there, you don't run away from the marriage. It's normal, it happens. You need to know that before you get to the I do point. And then the third thing that you need to know is expectations, especially the unrealistic expectations ruin marriages. And this is a very, very big, important point. Expectations are these preconceived notions about our partners or what they believe they should provide. And for those who are still relating, right now, I'm sure if you ask the each of either issue, if you ask each other, probably ask the gentleman, what are your expectations getting into this marriage? Most of the gentlemen will be like, I don't know. We shall see. I'm not very sure. Just get married and be happy, right? Now ask the lady. Oh my God, she's going to give you a full page written down. And the examples, I expect when we get married, probably we shall move from this apartment, we go to the next one, we live in this neighborhood, we shall buy that car, we shall go out every day, every weekend, right? Those are some of the expectations. Or, name them. Now, expectations themselves are not bad. The good side of expectation is that they point us in direction of our standards and boundaries, right? So probably by saying that, you're defining a certain quality of life that you want, or the kind of relationship that you want, the kind of marriage that you expect. However, if not controlled, they can be very toxic. Unrealistic expectations can creep in, and these are really terrible because you hold your partner to a very high standard that even you yourself cannot meet. And these expectations normally are shaped by family background or the society we follow. The things you see on social media, you say, I also want my marriage to be like that. Or I want, because my father used to do this and this in our family, then my husband or my wife should also do these things. And expectations are born of poor communication. We already tackled that. When you have these expectations, very important to communicate with your partner. Sit down and talk about them and see how can we meet, how can we have a middle ground. Otherwise, you'll just have your things in your mind. You'll be expecting, for example, if you get married, the husband, you expect your husband, when you come home, you expect both of you to go to the kitchen as you maybe you cook the food, he's doing the dishes. But alas, you get married and that is not what's going to happen. And because you don't communicate this, your partner won't know. For him, he comes back, he sits in the chair, watches TV, while for you, they're hustling with all the work, and yet you're both from work. So if you don't, and because you're not saying it out, you start resenting your partner, and that is very bad. When they get out of control, you becomes unfair, and because you hold your partner to a very high standard, and you start resenting it because you keep getting frustrated. And if you don't communicate this, it will really break you. It will mess up the bond between you and your partner, which is not good. So unrealistic expectations, please, are terrible. Just have expectations, communicate them, and then you can know how to meet in the middle. If he tells you I can't do that, this I can do, that's perfect. Communicate, communicate, communicate. And for those who are already married, if you already have those expectations right now, yes, how can you manage them? How can you manage these unrealistic expectations? For example, you think because you're married, you expect that if it's true love, it shouldn't take work. Like you should just wake up and everything is perfect. If he loved me, probably he would accept me no matter what. So whether you do something wrong, you would not even want the poor gentleman or the poor lady to probably mention something which you've done which is wrong, because you feel like it's love, it's true love, they shouldn't say anything, you know. And then the unrealistic expectation is we must have lots of sex all the time for those who are married. Yeah, because if you know, there's that, especially for those who have been abstaining, right? Those who have been abstaining, you're waiting to get married, and in your head, you're expecting fireworks every day. My friend, watch out your expectations. Yeah, you have to communicate, and it may not happen like that all the time. So, communication is very important. And then, how do you manage these expectations if they're already going out of control, and they're already going out of control, and you're like, how do you get back, right? The first thing is step back and ask yourself, why do I really want these things? Yeah, some of these expectations, we put them on other people because they are coming from our own inner self, our own inner insecurities. So you're trying to get it from your partner. Okay, so you need to look, really be honest with yourself, and then after that, know what is realistic, what is real and what is not, what can be achievable and what is not achievable. And then you start building an appreciation of your partner. Accept your partner for who they are, and truly appreciate them, because first of all, you're married. First of all, they are good to you, all right? And the expectation normally are small, minor things. Doesn't mean your partner is not really doing major things, the big things in the marriage. It could be just something small. So appreciate your partner for the daily things. How I handle this for me, from my personal experience, is I got a book, right? A notebook where I write. When my husband does something good, I note it down so that the next time I'm starting to go to that unrealistic expectation page in my mind, I opened my book and then I said, I have a very wonderful husband. Okay. So you have to practice appreciation. You have to practice loving, rather choosing to accept your partner for they are. Then build happy memories together, and then stop comparing your relationship with other people's relationships, okay? Because they are different. You're different people. You got married for different reasons. So do not compare your relationship with anything. That will just breed lots of unnecessary heartache. Then have more honest conversations. We already talked about communication. Talk about your feelings, your desires, your needs. Try and connect intimately so that you truly understand your person and get back to the root of who you are. Uh, you know, uh, this more calls for going back to your individual self. What are the things that you were doing so well before your partner came in now, and go back to that. Start doing that for yourself. You'll be a lot happier that way than expecting that all your happiness is going to come from your husband. And then just like Philippians 4:8 tells us that most of these things come from what we entertain in our mind. So you need to check what you think about from Philippians 4:8, right? Feed your mind with whatever is noble, whatever is true, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, what is admirable. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So, what do you think about when you look at your spouse? What is that you're thinking in your mind? Are you constantly thinking about the things he has not done or the negative side of it? Or you can decide to only look at, think about the good that he has done, so that way you have a better picture. I'm not saying you ignore the bad things, but that in the previous session, communication, find ways of communicating the negatives well. Constructive, negative feedback is important. However, always remember to think positively, right? And then the fourth one, by the way, that was just the third mass, no? So the fourth one is your happiness is totally your responsibility. Okay? Your happiness is your responsibility. Do not think that because you've gotten married, now it's your partner's responsibility to make you happy. And this usually is, I think, more on the ladies' side. We tend to think that because now you're married, the man should make you happy and all. Your partner cannot and will not complete you. So you need to invest in hobbies that allow you to enjoy your individuality so that you can grow in serenity, okay? And it's only after you've loved yourself that you can really, fully, truly give yourself and love your partner. So you need to what are those things that make you happy? What can you do on your own? You know, getting married doesn't mean that you're going to do everything together, right? Yes, you are one, but I mean, you're not going to do you go to the bathroom? Okay, sometimes you go to the bathroom together, but not all the time. When you go to work, you go alone, right? There are things that you can still do on your own to make you happy, and each of us needs, each of the partners needs that. The man is, it's okay for him to go and hang with his friends and do other manly things without you necessarily being there. Same for the lady. Invest in your personal happiness and your individuality. Go to a book club, go out to a sauna, you know, meet with your girls and all that. Then the other fifth thing is happily ever after takes a whole village. Yes, you need a support system. When you get married, it's, yes, it's, the marriage is for the two of you. However, it will not, if you want a happily ever after, you cannot just, you're not an island. You can't just lock yourselves in the house and then you're going to be happy. You need your friends, you need your families, you need, you need to, you still need to be, live out in the community. Okay. So it's very important to remember that some people get married and then for the whole year they have disappeared, they have gone MIA. You don't know what's going on in their lives because they think we are married, we don't need friends, right? You cut, sometimes people say they cut us off, but you, are you available? If every time they're inviting you for things and you say, no, my husband has said this, no, my wife, all this, I want to go home. And I mean, you can always schedule and, you know, and talk to each other and agree on the schedule of still how you can be out there with your friends and your family. And then it's very important to have a support system of other married couples, you know, like belong to a group of people who are married, who share similar values like you. You can even have marriage mentors. It's very recommended because, like we said, in marriage, there is need for continuous improvement. There's no one size fits all. There are always changes. It's dynamic, it keeps evolving. The situations keeps changing. So if you have marriage mentors, just like we always have spiritual mentors for our spiritual lives, and then we have career mentors, you know, marriage is serious business. So yes, you need also marriage mentors. It can be an older couple, people who have been in the marriage institution for longer than you have been, and they can help you. They can help guide you. So you have to invest in your relationship and marriage. Plan ahead, you know. You can go for holidays, you can take retreats, you know, it's very, very important. You need all that to build a strong and healthy marriage. So as you're contemplating saying I do, you need to know all these things so that you say I do for the right reasons, and you be sure that you're ready for all these things that happen in marriage. The other aspect is uh, communication. They talked about it in depth. I'll just hint it. Communication, finances, and sex are real deal breakers. And all these three feed into each other. Yes. Now, for communication, um, it's very, very hard to bond with somebody. Yes. It's very hard to bond when you are being too careful in your communication. If you choose what to say, you're very selective. I want to understand that by the time you get to the point of saying I do, it's very important to create a friendship with your partner, the person you're going to get married to. Be friends. Make sure you become friends so that it's very easy to talk to them. You have to, there are things, you have, like Dr. Monica was saying, there are things that are difficult to communicate. You develop that skill. So if every time something happens and then you're questioning, should I tell this person? Should I not? Then you're not ready to get married, because you need to come. If this marriage is going to work, even those hard things need to be communicated. So you have to develop that skill. You have to practice. You can. There's lots of material on communication, and we have had a wonderful session on communication. So I hope that you take those notes, and so you have to be open, be free. You have to trust. You build trust, all right? You can only become close by confiding in each other. And that would be very good. So you never assume anything in marriage, that it's all well. So you have to talk about it, but in a good, in a constructive way, positive way. And then finances. Finances is a real deal breaker. And if you check statistics, especially in countries where the divorces are high, they'll show you that finances are one of the big reasons why people divorce, because they do not know they do not know how. I mean, people. I don't know why people are so. When it comes to finances, it's very sensitive. People do not want to share their financial history and financial management with their partner. I mean, you need to discuss these things right from when you're dating. I think it's very important that you understand. You may not go into the details of how much you earn and all, I don't know. Though for me, it would be preferable if you're already in that, you're taking that step. Marriage is your calling. You've got the person. You're ready. I think it would be important to talk about finances, because if you can't trust somebody, you always, it builds a lot of mistrust and issues which are unnecessary. So the best way is talk about it. There are different ways as a couple which you can handle your finances. There are some people who prefer rather the man to take the lead and do everything, and then maybe the woman supplements here and there and takes care of the simple, let's say, food items at home, right? And then the man will pay school fees, pay rent, and all. That's also okay. But talk about it and see what works. There are people who prefer having a joint account, and then you send some money there monthly. If it works for you, that is also good. There are people who prefer to pull everything together, all their resources, right? But it's very important to discuss finances and how you're going to manage them. Uh, you need to know these things before. And then sex, of course, I don't want to preempt the next session, but I'm just going to talk about it briefly now. Uh, Sex, what I can talk about it is that different sexes now, like the men and the women, the way we are wired very differently. For most of the men actually are wired to desire sex more than the women are. Women are more laid back, when some, okay, majority, because there are some women who are not as laid back. There's some women who are most women are more laid back in their desire for sex, all right? So why do you need to know about it before you get married? Because like I said, it's a deal breaker. Already the man is wired to want it that much. That means he expects, and we can't blame them, because that is how God, the author of this marriage, made it. So we have to discuss it so that, as a woman, you prepare yourself to be interested in this thing they call sex. So you have to understand his needs as he also understands yours. And for the men, as the woman is prepared, for the men, what they need to think about is, for a woman, sex goes deeper than than the real physical act. It's more, there's a lot of intimacy that they desire. The women desire more of intimacy than the real physical thing. So if you're going to want your woman to match up your desire, that you have to also understand that her intimacy needs, right? That it's not just a physical action, but what comes before the physical action is very important. So as a man, remember I talk about marinating, yes? So it's very important to marinate each other. Marinating meaning you prepare yourselves in advance. So, so you need to discuss it. I don't know if it's just that you need to know, right? We're talking about what to know. You need to know that this is how it is. It is very, very important for a healthy marriage. I'm not going to say there's the frequency bit. It's up to you, but there's no one size fits all. And you talk about what works for you. Okay, you talk about what works for you when you're married, and it's very important to communicate. You cannot just have it blank. and then you keep quiet because I hear it's a very sensitive topic. No, you have to communicate your needs when it comes to sex. What does he need? What do you need? How do you go about it? How do you improve? It's very okay. Create that kind of environment where you can talk about it, what works for you and what doesn't, very, very comfortably. Yes. The must-knows are continued. So the next must-know is conflict is inevitable, right? Married people are nodding, I guess. Conflict is very, very inevitable. It happens because, you're two different people coming from two different worlds. You have had different experiences in life. You have different beliefs, all those things. So it's inevitable that you're going to conflict. You're going to agree to disagree. You're going to not agree sometimes, and maybe need a third party to come in and help you resolve it. So all these things they happen, right? You may need some time before you can get to that level. So you need to, to know that this happens, that even in relationships as you're dating, it happens. You're going to disagree, you're going to have different opinion, and that's very okay. So you have to, the most important thing is, how do you resolve this conflict? Because now you know it's going to happen, and then how are you going to deal with it? Now, it's important to recognize your role in resolving it, because there's always two sides of the story, right? Each of us contributes to a certain conflict in a certain way. You, by just not responding to someone's question and you're causing them to get angry with you, you've contributed in a certain way, right? By just keeping quiet, or when they ask you, you didn't provide a good response, you just know you have each of you, each of the partners contributes to a particular conflict at a given time. So that means both of you have a role, should play a role in resolving it. And most times, a big piece about how to handle conflict and anger is knowing that it starts with yourself, right? How for me I deal with conflict is, I always take a step back and understand, okay, what has happened? Why? What was my role in it? Okay, I don't start by, it's very important not to start by blaming, okay, you did this, you do that. No, it calls for a lot of humility. You need to be humble, and a big aspect of marriage calls for humility. You have to humble yourself. Remember, we said that marriage is a call to what? It's a calling, and it's a call to service. So it's not just for you, right? It's not for your own happiness here. I mean, he's the one who did wrong, and then you pull him out for the whole week. No, that's not what it should be like. That's not how God wanted it to be, right? It's, you're supposed to serve. So that's when it comes in. Now you humble yourself and you're like, okay, what is my role? What did I play in all of this? Then after you've humbled yourself and you have genuinely, genuinely recognize your role in it, that's when you can offer now. You can now extend a hand to your partner, and then you figure out how to come together and communicate it as a couple. So do not be very quick to respond and react. But what you need to do is stop, be present, and listen. We talked about listening and communication. Listen to your partner. Because how did they interpret it? Sometimes the conflicts are not even real conflicts, but just because they arise from poor communication, because someone said something and they interpreted it another way. So you may have to understand and listen, so that you say, oh, you know what? I said that, but that's not how I meant it. Then you probably provide clarification. So it's very important that before, just like Matthew 7 tells us 3:5, that do not look at the speck in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye. All right? So do not point a finger to the other side when you yourself, you had a role to play in it. Always start with yourself, and that is humility. And also be very forgiving. You need to learn forgiveness. If you cannot forgive somebody, then you're not going to make it in marriage, because you have to forgive every day. It's a school for forgiveness, right? So you have to forgive, forgive. In marriage, there's a lot of forgiveness, a lot of forgiveness. Every day you have to decide, I'm going to forgive you, I love you. Two things. You have to decide, make a decision every day to love your partner, and every day to forgive them, because you just never know when the next conflict is coming or the next annoyance. All right. So And also in line with forgiveness, Romans 12:21 tells us that do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So even when your partner has annoyed you, you don't revenge is not, like I said, it's forgiveness, not revenge. So we continue doing good because we have forgiven, and when we forgive, we have to forget. I know it's hard, you may say it's easier said than done, but trust me, when you practice forgetting, when you have forgiven, it's very possible. You can do it. You'll not forget, but I mean, when you remember, does it still take you to the same point of anger that you had before? That is what forgetting means. You remember it as a by the way, but it shouldn't uh, keep there, and then you keep bringing it up in conversations. By the way, it's also not good to keep referring to the past conflict that has already been resolved. When you have resolved it, it is gone and gone. Try. I know this is difficult for women because we have like a record, a catalog of everything someone has done wrong. But please, 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 you need to know that when you're married, the men hate it very much, especially so. And even you wouldn't want someone to keep reminding you of the things they have done wrong to you. So you have to try and learn not to remember. Every time you want to, rather not to bring it up again. When you want to bring it up again and you remember, please stop there. All right? Do not bring up past issues. And then the other thing you need to know is your partner's family relationships are very key. We already had such a similar question that has been answered, right? So you need to understand these family dynamics. How does your partner get along with his family? It's very important. Are they close? Are they distant? Who are his closest knit people in the family? You know, there are those people you need to know, because some of these things, how he was raised, how the lady was raised, are going. Some of these things are carried into the marriage. So you need to understand. Eh? I'll give you an example. All right, it may not be very perfect, but help me understand why I say this is. I am in my own family. I am a second last born, right? So they treated me like a real baby. At functions, I am the one who just carries the bags and carries the babies. Not that I didn't do work, I do work, but when my siblings are there, I don't have to do anything. Actually, up to now. And my husband, too, is the same, second last born. So we got a lot of things done for him. So we got married. Two babies in quotes, right? So I have, it took me a long time to understand that now each of us, because of how we were raised, because of the relationship we had with our families, we expect things to be done for us. So we had to discuss this because we had carried it on, and we had to find a way of working it out so that we do not, it doesn't be a continuous source of conflict. So you need to understand these things, and what kind of family does it come from? Do they have, you know, it's not really important to know. It's important to understand how the person was raised, the kind of relationship they had, because you can see these trends carrying forward in the marriage. So you have to create a safe space for your partner to talk about their past, also the wounds, the painful things that happen in their marriages, if they have not, rather in their families, if they have not received healing from it. If they have prayerfully received healing from it, they may be carried forward. So you may find someone, one of you is not talking well, or they are timid, or they keep quiet when they are faced with a certain situation, but probably it's because of the wounds they carry from their families. So you need to create a safe space for your partner to talk about it, their past wounds, and don't use these things against your partner. You have to help the person, because, like I said, marriage is a calling to serve. It's a ministry in itself. So this person, your partner, could actually receive healing through this marriage, and it happens a lot to all of us. It happens to all of us. So this is very important. And then the second, the last one almost, is that children are a gift from God, right? Children are a gift from God. Like any gift, you don't decide what gift you get, right? Like any gift, God may choose to bless you right away or not. Or he may even choose not to bless you with children at all. We said he's the author of marriage, so you need to know this. So it's not obvious. When when we are preparing to get married, or when you're younger, you automatically know. You imagine that when you're going to get married, you're going to have children, 5 children, or 2 girls, 2 boys, the sex thing of the children, right? But getting married now, I understand that it's not a black or blue. It's not obvious, and if you look at it from God's perspective, that children are a gift from God, you have to prepare yourself for that. Of course, prayerfully, we believe in Jesus' name that He will bless us with these gifts. But what if He doesn't, right? What if He doesn't give you the children? Then what are you going to do? I think children is something you need to be aware of, right? Even before you get married, you need to understand. So because many people, many like, it's good we had a session on the medical aspects of our relationships, and doctor talked about some of these things. They can have, there may be fertility issues, etc. So you need to know these things early, so that you go, like you recommended, go and see the doctor, get tested, but also understand that children are a gift from God. So do not be put under pressure. When are you giving us? Some people even have had one child and then they are pressuring them. When is the next one coming? When are you giving us? So do not allow yourself to be put under such pressure. Just go back to the author of it all, trust him with your fertility aspect, pray to him, and I know he shall bless you, if so that is his will. And then remember that marriage in its own design, the first reason, the first purpose of it is it's for companionship. When God created Adam, he did not throw children at him first right away. No, he first gave him Eve, right, as a companion, because Adam was lonely. So he gave him Eve for companionship, to keep him company, and then later on, as the second he said, go forth and multiply the world. So procreation comes second to companionship. So if you're in such a situation now, you're married and you find yourself you have no children, or you've been struggling and all, you need to remember that. But for some people, just like the callings and all, for some people, well, he may have decided that you're going to, he needs you to grow in companionship first. So focus on each other, and the children are a gift. They come as a follow up to the companionship. So you need to discuss these things, prepare early, what medical interventions options are there. Is adoption an option if that is not for you, right? So it's very important to know this so that you don't get very frustrated later on. And the very last one, of course, is understand that men and women are different in the way they are wired, so they think, and the way they think, act, and respond differently. And that's very true. And I recommend that if you get that book that Dr. Monica talked about, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. If you really want to get married and have a very wonderful marriage, please get that book and read it. It's going to be very, very insightful and help you. And most importantly, a good marriage is a product of hard work. From all the things clearly we have talked about, marriage itself is hard work. So doing all those things, forgiveness, managing your expectations, uh, building on your individuality, forgiveness is hard work. Okay, so you need to know that right away. Do not think that when you get married, all of it, the butterflies will just keep flying, or things will just work magic. It will just work like magic. You have to put in work. You have to be very intentional. You have to decide what kind of marriage do you want. Do you want a marriage for what kind of marriage you want really? So you work towards it. You totally reap what you sow in marriage, and that is very true. And of course, prayer. We said marriage starts from God, right? Marriage starts from God is the author of marriage, so we cannot do it without Him. He's the only one who knows. He has the vision for it, so you have to go back to Him and ask Him for guidance. Pray to Him, to Him for help, and He will guide you. And there's a lot in the Word of God that talks about marriage. So always pray. Your marriage will definitely not succeed also if you don't pray. Pray, pray, and pray. And now, for those who are dating, you're wondering, now that we've talked about marriage, how do you even get to that point of marriage, right? Now we're going to discuss more about how do you choose, what are those things, what do you consider before you even start a relationship, or you're already in a relationship. How do you know? How do you decide? What are those things you can look at to guide you to choosing the right partner for yourself, right? Now, things to consider: what? First of all, you need to establish why you want a relationship, right? Do you want it just for fun? Is it aimed at marriage, peer pressure? Is it because of the biological clock that Dr. Mugaga talked about? Is it for fear of being alone, right? So it's very important to know why. Why do you want to be in a relationship? You don't have to really be in a relationship. So for a relationship is supposed to be a love relationship should ideally be geared towards marriage. You should not just be dating for fun. So you should get into a relationship if if you already stand that you're called to marriage, then get into a relationship for that reason to as a way of means of getting to marriage because you have to date. So you need to make your values clear. What are your values, right? What are your values? What do you stand for? Or this will prevent you from going with whatever comes. You need to know what you stand for, so that's what you bring to the relationship. And then of course you have to pray for a good partner, like we mentioned. Marriage comes from God. Marriage comes from God, so you have to pray, and for a good partner, take it to the Lord in prayer. You give the Lord your values. You give the God is like any father, really, any parent. So you take it to God and say, God, this is what I need. I think I need for, because you really don't know. This is what I need. And God will help you. He can start beating some of the things on your list and help you realize what you really need. And then also, He can prepare for you. Ask Him to prepare for you the man or the woman that He has for you, because everything starts from Him. And so you have to get involved for the right reasons. You need to know that you have enough time for the relationship so that you don't cause people heartache. There are people who get into relationships and then they're not giving it time, right? Especially the gentleman. You just start a thing and then you arouse the woman's desires and interests, and then you just leave her hanging, and you're not giving her time. A relationship cannot go if you're not investing in it. So you need to know, first of all, are you willing to sacrifice? What sacrifice are you willing to make? How much time for other things are you willing to give up for this person, so that you don't just swing them along and cause them lots of heartache. And then know how long you can, rather make sure that know how long you can see yourself with this person. So you have to project when you start. Like you said, it's geared towards marriage. So can you see yourself married to this person? That still you don't waste people's time. And if it's not working, you let it go. So point as to, is he the one? Now, this varies from person to person depending on your values and your belief system. But these are the few considerations you can make. The first one is compatibility. Are you compatible in terms of your interests or hobbies? Do they align? Are you compatible intellectually? Conversation, when you start to talk, when the other partner speaks, do you feel like you're drawn to? Are you connecting, or it's a still conversation and you can't wait to leave? So there has to be that kind of compatibility. Are they compatible with your value system? What are your values, right? They may not be 100%, but at least the 80-20 rule works. If 80% is compatible, the other 20, and then you also have a 20 the other side. So in compatibility also, physical attraction is very important. Yes, I said it. Physical attraction is important. If you cannot, if you're not attracted to the person, it's going to be a problem later on in marriage. There has to be something that draws you physically to this person. Okay. Now, the second thing is look out for kindness and compassion. Does he protect you? Do you feel safe? Especially when you're faced with negative situations, how does he act in stressful situations? Does he protect you, or when something bad happens, he's thinking about himself first? So those are some of the things you need to look at. If he's really protective, let's say you had an accident or you are driving his car or something and you had an accident, and he's like, how was my car? Instead of before asking how you're doing first. No, you need someone who is kind and compassionate. Then it's important to test their character, right? You need to be sure that this person is not in it only for sex, because, guys, marriage is not just about sex like we have seen. You need to test their honesty, their trust. Can they be trusted? Are they honest with you, or there are things that don't come out clearly? Then do you feel comfortable around each other? Like when you're with them, you feel like home. Yes. Or when you're with them, you're trying to hide things, or you're not, you feel like stuck in your stomach for the ladies. Or when you go out, you eat your chicken and only take one bite and you leave it on the table, all right? I mean, if you're not that comfortable around each other, what are you going to do in marriage for all those many years? Because all your ugly self will come out once you're married. And Then the other thing is make sure there's respect between the two of you. Um, you don't want to be in an abusive relationship, so you need to make sure he respects you and understands your values and the things you stand for. You see a similar future with each other, or he has other plans and he doesn't even put you in his future, or and you're the one who is always dreaming, right? Like a man who is really interested in you will make time for you and will put you in his future if he has decided. I've seen men who say, I'm not ready for marriage, and then you date for 3 years, and then after you decide, you know what, I can't be in this confusion, 6 months later, you married someone else, and yet you said he wasn't ready. Yes. Then you see, you agree to disagree. Healthy conflicts. If you can have healthy conflicts, that's a good sign. And you respect each other's independence, right? Not someone who is always clingy and wants you to be independent and encourages you and pushes you forward to be the best self, your very best self, is someone to hold on to. And you have to connect on a higher level, you know that he gets me feeling when you speak, you're connecting to that extent. I don't have a better word for it. Yes. So as a last note, you need to remember that not all relationships must end in a marriage. So do not force it if it's not working out. The sooner you figure it out, the better. Do not force a relationship that is not working. Not all relationships should end in a marriage, like we already established earlier, because marriage is for a lifetime. So you can't afford to go in if it's not working. You have to go in when you're sure. Yes, thank you very much. And that's all we had. And I pray that God will help each of us along this journey to build beautiful, solid, and praiseworthy relationships. Over to you, Claire.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Fausta. This was so rich. But due to time, we are going to have questions real quick. So we're going to take 3 questions from Mugisa, and then we have 1 question for people who want to raise up their hands. And then we shall tell you what is going to happen next. What is going to happen is amazing. So make sure you listen to the questions and answers, and then you hear what is going to happen next. Yes, over to you, Mugisa.
Okay, thank you so much, Fausta. Some of the questions that came through in the private chats and also in the chats. The first one is, you talked about having a support group and maybe mentors. So one of the questions that came through was, how can I get a marriage mentor? Maybe Dr. Monica can help us with that since she does a lot of that. What are those key indicators that can help someone identify a mentor, a marriage mentor, or even a couple? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Peter. So for a mentor, you would really want to choose somebody who you're free with, who most likely should be older than you.
Hi, Dr. Monica, we can't hear you.
Yes.
You are clear. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes.
You are clear.
Okay. Okay. So I was saying that you need somebody you're free with, both of you, and preferably it should not be maybe a relative of either, and that's why maybe the church would be a best place to identify a marriage mentor, and where the marriage is working. Really, I think if the marriage is not working, you might not get a good example. And then people who will give you that time. It's good that you identify people who will give you that time. I remember there was for the charismatics, many people would choose Father Bashawora as their spiritual mentor. So I would ask, when will you find Father Bashawora? Because he's not really available. So you choose somebody who will have time with you somebody you can both trust, especially to keep your issues to themselves, to journey with you. So in church, you can be able to, and preferably somebody who lives close to you. Although some of us, like for me and Deo, our marriage mentors are in Masaka, but they do create the time, maybe once in 6 months we meet. Because of COVID, we've not met, but we do sometimes discuss on phone. So you have to have that access to the person. If they are ready to journey with you, I think distance may not be an issue, but the issue is, can you get time to meet this couple at least once in 6 months? And then, of course, are they an example? You know, sometimes in our Catholic Church, I've seen some of the people, it's people who give a lot of money, who are elected as leaders, and somehow they are supposed to be the examples, but when you look into their lives, they are not really examples, especially in the marriage ministry. So are they an example? Are you able to share both the good times and the bad times? So those are some of the indicators. There are not many marriage mentors, like in outside countries. I think in outside countries, it's more even the ministry sets up such people where you can go and be supported. But for us, I think we just have to create that. It's almost like the same thing of Sunday school in our church. It's not so well developed, but it's our generation who can look at some of those gaps and ensure that people are helped. And then we know, like in this deep voice, there are already people who can already be marriage mentors. And it doesn't mean that the marriage mentor is 100% perfect or their marriage is really working out. I think when we started journeying with couples, we had even more issues than some of the couples who would come to us. But we just allowed ourselves to be used by God. And then through that, our marriage actually grew and we benefited. So I would encourage us, sometimes people feel shy to come to you, but you can offer yourself even just to a couple you see struggling. And then you say, oh, we shall be there for you. And when you find a challenge, come to us. Something like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica. The next question goes to Fausta, I think. How do I let my partner know that I'm ready for I do?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Monica, for that elaboration. Now, oh my God, how do you let your partner know that you're ready for I do? That's an interesting question. And I think very many ladies are faced with that. I think for us, the ladies get more ready sooner than the gentlemen when they're still very undecided. They're not sure. They're thinking about the finances. Yet for us, we are already ready to go. Now, how I would do it personally is I think you could do it is, again, communication. I think it's very important. Okay, when you start a relationship, to talk about, discuss, like why are we, okay, the outcome of the relationship. Are we just dating or is it intended for marriage? And if it's intended for marriage, maybe you can discuss when do you think, you can talk about when each of you thinks they are ready to get married. So that way, if for you you're ready, let's say in 2 years time, or in 6 months, and for him is ready in 2 years time, it would be good for you to know, instead of just walking around and you do not know what he thinks or what she thinks. So I think you communicate, you talk about it and find out and express the level of readiness, so that you can either work out a compromise and say, okay, if you're ready in a year and I'm ready in 6 months, can we now make it 9 months? Because there are reasons why you're ready and probably he's not, and those need to be addressed. I think that's how you should go about it. Yes. Maybe someone
Thank
else
you.
could.
Thank you so much. Liz wanted to add something.
Thank you, Fausta. And I would just want to encourage whichever lady asked this question, is that don't expect them, just like Fausta said, on the unreasonable expectations. Don't expect him to read your mind, really. And if you just keep quiet, then you can as well accept. Sorry, there's some feedback. Yeah, so if you expect him to just read your mind, then he can as well go with his own timing, and that will hurt you and hurt your feelings. It's very good to be very clear, be very firm, and be very honest. I'll sharing again my experience. I'm like Jude's wife. We didn't get proposed to these dramatic proposals we see on WhatsApp and what. Why? Because I went to this gentleman. I didn't want him to waste my time. You see, so I went to him and I told him, you know what, mister, you're planning. When are you planning to marry me? Specifically, me, when do you plan to marry me? He gave me a year. Okay, that year has 12 months. Which month are you looking at? You see, now that was me. I outrightly asked him, and that's how he got to commit to actually a date that he later went on and fulfilled. Sometimes you just have to come out and speak because the other person might not see or know that you're ready. And you'll throw all these signals and you end up being very depressed, very sad, and you end up giving up. By the time for him is ready for it, you might have already snapped out of it. So be honest and say all the things that you're saying with love, while caring for him that in case he's not on the same wavelengths with you, you can find a compromise in the middle that matches for both of you. That's if the relationship is really, really good and you don't want to spoil it. Please be very understanding if the other person's timelines are out of yours, so that you compromise in the middle and you settle. That's the importance of the marriage counselors and marriage mentors. They can sit you down and you actually come to a consensus that's beneficial for both of you, given the reasons both of you are giving. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that is it from the questions on my side. I think back to the MCs. The other questions have been answered. I think we don't need to really go back to them. Thank you.